Hi folks, Matt Easton here. So I've seen that there are actually quite a number of videos and responses to videos and responses to responses on videos, particularly from the likes of Lindy Beige and others, on the subject of knives being thrown and throwing knives. Now, most of the subject matter has been covered very well by those other people. I don't really want to go into an in-depth discussion on throwing knives at the moment. I have toyed around with throwing knives at things since I was a fairly young age, as I expect many of you out there who have done also. I've never personally bought any specialised throwing knives. I've just taken knives I didn't really care much about and thrown them. And I think that's really the point that I want to make. I, like some people out there, have a contention, and I know Lloyd has made a big point about the fact that, you know, there are no armies in history who have been armed with throwing knives routinely, and there are no people who go out hunting by throwing knives at animals. This is completely true, and I completely agree, and I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. However, I think it kind of misses the point. The point is that throughout most cultures, through most of history, a knife or a dagger was something that pretty much everybody had. Even in medieval Europe, where many civilians were, common civilians who weren't nobility, were not allowed to walk around the streets with swords or other weapons, they were allowed to carry a knife, and it wasn't always necessarily a dagger or a sort of military type of knife. It might just be an eating knife, essentially like a carving. What if you imagine a modern carving knife or a large chef's knife? But one of those objects is pretty good in self-defense or indeed offense, as a weapon used in your hand. And there are times when you want to throw a weapon at someone. And I did a video previously, which I expect many of you will have seen, hopefully, about throwing swords. And you see swords being thrown in movies, and you think, that's just pure Hollywood or kind of kung fu kind of rubbish, and it's not historical, and it's why would someone throw their sword? But the fact of the matter is that the people did throw their swords, and there's historically documented examples of it happening, and it's shown in combat treatises in the 15th century, for example, including the treatise that I teach a class based on. I don't cover sword throwing very often, but it is mentioned several times within the book. And the fact of the matter is that occasionally there is a scenario where for some reason you might want to throw a weapon that's normally at your belt or in your hand at someone. It might be that you want to throw your weapon at them and then run away. Okay? If a crowd of people are hurtling towards you, and you know that you stand no chance of fighting them off in hand-to-hand combat, it may be worth your while chucking your weapon at them and then running as fast as you can possible, because it might buy you an extra couple of seconds to get a head start on them as they kind of all shy away. Equally, if you see an opponent that you're charging in on and you have more than one hand weapon, say I've got a sword for example, but I also have a knife, I might think that person's a better swordsman than me, and as I charge in, I might throw my knife, maybe with my left hand, throw that knife towards them as I come in with my sword. So again, it's a way of distracting and possibly even wounding the opponent. And of course this was done, we know this was done with spears and franciscas and possibly shuriken type objects in Japan. In various cultures at various times, hand weapons or things that you could easily kind of carry about your person were thrown as you went into combat. It wasn't necessarily that they're better than a bow or better than a spear, but they don't need to be. And I think that's my main point. The reason that for many sort of centuries it's been known that knives could be thrown, and there are mentions of knives being thrown historically, is because everybody's got a knife. Everybody is not walking around all the time with a spear or with a bow or with a gun or with a crossbow, but they are walking around, at least in many historical and ethnographic scenarios, they are walking around with a knife or a dagger. So that's why they throw them. They don't throw them because they're better than a spear or better than a bow. No, of course, we know that a bow or a spear is a better missile weapon than a knife is. But the point is, you have a knife. Everybody has a knife with them, and you can use it as a hand weapon or as a tool or to eat with or to throw at someone if you need to. So there we go. That's really the only point I want to make, is that I think comparing throwing knives with proper dedicated missile weapons is not really fair, but I also think it misses the point. The point is that knives and daggers are the kind of thing that can be always on your person and are always useful. So therefore, if there's a situation where you need to throw one, and you know how to throw one, then you throw it. It's not a question of, shall I throw this? I think a bow would be better. If only I had a bow. Oh, I won't throw my knife because a bow would be better. That doesn't make sense. Cheers.